Shell is lighter. Yes, I will give you tips on how to do that. Okay. Okay, we'll rehearse. So, not, oh, you light it, and then this little deal pulls back. Like the side to come here. No, this is after you light it.
All right.
Light it.
And then pull it back.
Pull that back and then put it there. And then at the end of the circles, when you're closing, I'll say, before we close, or you'll just say, I'll nudge you to mention.
Somebody had gotten us.
Yeah, okay, so here's my closing words. I say, here, like, as we come to the close, blah, blah, blah. And then,
Oh, look.
yes.
I'll know you're done.
Yeah, I'm going to read these words. I got a little poem to read. Yeah, so when I finish that, you can just, just extinguish it. You got it. Where you see it? I'll give you a clue, okay?
Well, we just kind of.
Yes, I will.
No, I'm not Mike.
Where's your holiday?
She's got a low voice. You got the mic.
Yeah, I was looking to see if you could wait. I'm glad.
Sarah.
No. It's okay.
So I usually
And the very well, you know, after the break, I'm sure that the program ladies and stuff for stuff like that.
So you're getting some massage?
Not that I regular sensation. I really like that. I get my patients. And I don't have to like read like everything. But occasionally, I write the there was this lady.
Good morning and welcome. And thank you, John. That was a beautiful start to our time together. I'm Mary Ann O'Dowd. I'm a member of this fellowship. And whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been coming for years, we're so glad you're here. This is a Unitarian Universalist space, a place where questions are welcome, where diverse beliefs and backgrounds are celebrated, and where we come together not because we all think the same, but because we choose to walk this path together. Our theme this morning is Speaking What Breathes Beneath, the Power of Words. Words carry more than just meaning. They carry emotion, memory, hope, truth. Sometimes they give shape to feelings we've barely begun to understand, and sometimes speaking them out loud, claiming them as our own, is the bravest thing we can do. Whether your voice is loud or quiet, practiced or still emerging, there is space for it here. There is power in what we share and how we choose to speak our truths. Everyone has a story worth sharing. To begin our time together, let's ground ourselves in the spirit of shared language and connection. Please join me in a responsive reading from We Speak the Language of Love by Erica Hewitt. The response is in your order of service. I'll read the leader's parts, and then you respond. I'll gesture to the crowd when that's the right time for that, okay? All right. In the moments before worship begins, and again when we return to the service of life, we greet one another with kind words. We chat about the days behind us and days to come, and we speak the language of love. We lift our voices in song, not to sing perfectly or in tune, but to hear and feel our voices form a life, giving sound, and we speak the language of love. We form a web of compassionate listening when individuals among us, embodying vulnerability, name the fears that grip their hearts, the joys that buoy their spirits. We speak the language of love. At times, our voices clash, we disagree, tension enters our voices as we make room for different beliefs, different opinions, different perspectives. Through it all, our intention is that we speak the language of love. In this fellowship, we welcome a municipality of truths and invite them to be named out loud. We prophesy, summoning the age when justice and peace will be evident all around us, and we speak the language of love. We worship together, making room for one another as whole beings, tender hearts, hungry spirits, and curious minds. With our actions and our words, let us speak the language of love. Thank you. Please silence your devices if you haven't already done so. And it is our custom to welcome anyone who is visiting for the first time or for the first time in a while. If you're comfortable doing so, please introduce yourself. We'll start at my right. Anyone want to introduce themselves? Please do.
I'm not the new one, but under the category of having not been here for a while, I bring back my bride.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Yes, please.
I'm a sometime visitor. I'm visiting from Milwaukee today. I spend half of my time in Ephraim, and when I'm working in the summer for Northern Sky Theater, that's usually when I visit. But I'm visiting today to see my friend Lacrissa speak. I think you guys have the best guests.
And your name?
My name is Molly.
Molly, yes. Thank you, Molly. Anyone else? Great. Oh, sorry. Oh, hi.
Molly inspired me. I too straddle between two communities. My name is Mark Shropshire. I'm in Appleton, and when I'm in Bailey's Harbor, and when I'm here, I like who I become. So thank you for
Oh, wonderful. That's beautifully stated. Beautifully stated. And many of you know, but for those of you visiting for the first time, we have coffee and treats after service, and then we gather back in this room for a post-service discussion with our speaker. You'll hear chimes when it's time to regroup, and if you're wrapped up in conversation, having a good time, don't feel rushed, but the chimes are the sign to come back here and join our speaker. This morning, we are honored to welcome a speaker whose talents span stage, screen, and song. LaCrissa Granberry brings not only her artistry, but also her deep presence and perspective to everything she does. Whether through storytelling, music, or written word, she invites us to see the world and ourselves a little more clearly. In her talk today, you'll hear reflections that tie into her brand new book, Shredding Rugs, which launched for pre-order just a couple of days ago. And if I'm correct, it was on your birthday. It was. Yes. If you'd like to learn more or support her work, you can find details at lacrissagranberry.com, and you'll hear from LaCrissa shortly. Before we move into announcements this morning, I'm excited to welcome one of our community partners. Jeff Lutzy from the Climate Change Coalition of Door County is here to share a few words about an upcoming event to celebrate Earth Day. Jeff?
Great. Thank you very much. This isn't my first time here, but this is my second time here. And I feel like I'm here more often than those two times, because I connect with a whole lot of you in a lot of ways with the work that we do with the Climate Change Coalition, in addition to conservation work and other things throughout the county. So yeah, my name is Jeff Lutzy. I work for the Climate Change Coalition of Door County. And first, before mentioning two different events that are coming up, I want to just give an offer of gratitude to you all. The Climate Change Coalition exists quite literally because of the UU. Mary and Dick Smythe, some 12 years ago, said, hey, we need to do more on climate change, and let's do something about it. And the UU kind of collectively and individually said, go start that organization, and we will help. And a lot of people in this room help the Climate Change Coalition grow and do more and more every single year because of that. So big thanks to the UU for the history of supporting and making the organization do more. Additionally, big gratitude for Hank and others to say, hey, let's and really everyone to say, let's give back to the community a lot, generously with money, with the three nonprofits that you are contributing to in the offertory for the whole year. So that for you to kind of talk about Climate Change Coalition and our work, along with the Northern Door Children's Center and the Housing Partnership, that's really, really awesome to be this warm space, to be this area of spirituality, and to do things, to really be out there in the community and help. So big thanks for that, for us to be able to do all this work. The two specific actions that I'd love to mention today are the big plant, that we're getting ready to plant a lot of trees, and then a concert coming up. So the big plant, every single year for the last 5 years, we've been made it our goal to get the whole county to plant 10,000 trees together. And the vast majority of those trees are these little two-year-old conifers. And so we have firs and white pines and red pines and white spruces. What was that? I missed it. Did you say how cute it was? Yeah. It is so adorable. I will say, to add a joke on a joke, I love talking about trees, and I went and talked with Miles and the folks at the Pulse, and they said, they made the joke, and it might actually be true, that I carry these trees around because they're my emotional support pets. And it probably is true. So we work really, really hard to plant 10,000 trees and really share and spread 10,000 trees to any organization that'll help and contribute. So that's churches and temples, and that's friends groups, and that's municipalities and community business associations, and that's so 2 days from now I'm going to have 8,000 of these trees in my yard, and there'll be 100 people that pick up either a whole tray of these firs, or we're progressively getting a little bit better at getting a wider array of diverse trees. This is a basswood. We have oaks and maples and birches as well. So we keep trying to obviously diversify. These are the easiest trees to plant, but obviously diversity is the key to all forests. So, what I'd love to invite you all to is we're doing our community plantings. So every year we do 5 or so free public plantings in the spring and 2 in the fall time. And so the 5 that we have planned over the next 3 weeks will be at the Ridges for 2 of them, one in kind of northern Ridges and the other one in southern Ridges. We'll be at Jacksonport, in the town, the lawn in front of the cemetery, and Crossroads, as well as Doorway to Learning, the new children's center, daycare center down in Sturgeon Bay. So the first one's Jacksonport next Friday. We'd love to have you join, tell your friends, tell anybody. I have some flyers, and you can kind of pass the flyers around that have all the details to all 5 of those plants, but we'd love to have you. Secondly, the other event, I think either Colin or Christine were here for Colin and Friends a couple of weeks ago. So I just want to re-emphasize that we do this tree planting every year, but we've never had like a big celebration to talk about it and celebrate it and make music and art with it. So 2 Fridays from now, on April 25th, is Arbor Day at the Door County Auditorium, one of their free concerts. They're letting us kind of take over that place. And so us, Climate Change Coalition, with Colin and Friends, fundamentally it's a Colin and Friends concert. Colin, of course, improvisational genius, and he brings in awesome like genius artists and buddies with him, and that's kind of just a great gift that he offers the community. And so he said, hey, let's really lean into the fact that it's Earth Day and it's Arbor Day and it's tree planting and stewardship, and this is so important. So it'll be music and poetry reading, music and another reading. We have a guest speaker, Parker Drew. He's a Mark Twain, kind of a famous Mark Twain impersonator, so he'll do some readings as well. And then we'll be making together this big art exhibit. So thanks for letting me speak on this, and yeah, love to have you join. I have some flyers. Reach out to me. I can send more flyers if you have a way to like post this anywhere on a bulletin or something like that. But love to have you join. Please tell your friends, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions. So thank you.
Does anyone have any other brief announcements related to the fellowship? We don't have a mic today. The mic will find you.
Good morning, it's Jane Wise. Just a reminder, our food barrel is still out in the foyer. I didn't put a notice in the newsletter, so probably didn't bring food today, but I usually pick it up Tuesdays, or Cindy Nelson sometimes picks it up also. But if you still have a couple days, put some food in there. Or remember, there are 9, I believe, other food pantries in the county. And so if you live nearer to one of those, and I put a list of those in the newsletter or the e-blast, one of them, a little while ago. But if you want to know about where they are, just let me know. Thank you very much.
My name is Charlotte Lucas. Some of you may not know that. On Earth Day, I'm giving a free program down at Crossroads. It starts at 6:30 in the evening. It's sponsored by Wild Ones and the Door County Master Gardeners. And it's a program I developed about Door County conservation mentors. And it's primarily about Emma Tuft and my late husband, Roy Lucas, but I will be talking about a few others. So you're just invited to come down. It's free, and it's on Earth Day.
Cindy Nelson. I have 2 announcements. One ties in with what Jeff was talking about. The Green Tier Committee of Ephraim has sponsored for the last 6, 7, 8 years, a tree giveaway. Our giveaway is next Saturday, so any household can take 4 trees that are paid for by the Village of Ephraim's Green Tier Committee. So come join us at the Village Hall, which is right on 42, between 9 and 11 Saturday morning. My other announcement comes from our Social Justice Committee. Loaves and Fishes is a Northern Door faith community event that happens on the second Tuesday of every month. The UU has always provided desserts at least a couple times for those events. We are going to provide desserts for the month of May. So I need 3 people to see me after service today to say, oh, I can make bars or cookies. So the first 3 that get to me get to bring them. So May 8th, check your calendars. Thank you.
You too.
Bruce Nelson. I also have 2 announcements. One, I think you all probably noticed the absence of all the downed tree limbs and branches in our front yard. And on a very short notice, we put together a team that included Al Johnson, Carl Wise, myself, Tom Schroeder, and Cindy, and we cleaned up all those branches here on Friday. But this will not be your last chance. We have some invasive species, et cetera, in our backyard to take care of, and I'll be making announcements of that in the near future. The second announcement I have is it's time to change the angle of our solar panels. So I will be looking for 2 volunteers. The first 2 that come to visit me will get the opportunity, during or just after the coffee hour, we'll go do that. Thank you. Got one already.
Did you have it? It's okay.
You got 3 and I
There you got somebody. Oh, you saw it, okay. My name is Gwen Grayboys, and I'm the lead for the Environment Committee here at UU. We had our first meeting of this year last week, and we have a laundry list of things we'd like to do, but the first event is we will be hosting a table at Earth Day, right, adjoined to the climate change, and we're going to be discussing microplastics in our environment, try to give people some simple things to do to ameliorate your ingestion and breathing of these particles.
Thank you for doing that. Good. Anybody else?
All right. He was volunteering. Yep. Thank you. And then just a reminder to please return your surveys about our our Outreach Steering Committee's Community Partner Program. If you haven't already done so, copies of the survey are in the lobby. So now let's begin our service. I'm going to invite Liz Hanson to light our chalice while I read these words by Melanie Davis. A spark of hope. If ever there was a time for a candle in darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love. Ignite the light of peace and feed the flame of justice. Please join in singing hymn 300. Stand if you are able. The hymn is With Heart and Mind, and we'll follow it with our unison affirmation and doxology.
Good.
We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. Now is the time in the service when you may briefly share a joy that fills your heart or a concern that might weigh heavily on you. And just keep in mind the service is recorded for future viewing, so please only share information about someone else if you have permission to do so. Any joys or concerns?
A definite joy. Welcoming Carol back after a very long absence, and in a few days, welcoming Mary Smythe and Dick back to Door County. Mary is recovering well. Her heart is not leaking anymore. She may need further surgery coming down the line, but at this point in time, free to come home, spend her summer with us, go to Ireland as they had planned, mid-May till mid-June. So life goes on in this season of resurrection. We've got to.
Anyone else? Oh, Gwen.
Hey, Gwen.
My name is Gwen Grayboys. I have a concern that's sort of a joy at the same time. I recognize that public speaking is not my forte. Having been addressed by my first name and when I was presenting at the town of Sevastopol for our wake boating ordinance, and I got so goofed up when the town chair called me by my first name, I totally forgot like the first part of the speech. So I decided when I saw that Dan Clara at TAP was offering an acting class, I called him and I said, do you think this would help me? And he said, well, you have to come to the first and the last. I said, well, I can't make the first, I'll try your next session. Then he emails me back and says, well, I have several people who can only do 3 of the 6, so why don't you come? So I did. And I'll tell you, there is nothing as awe-inspiring as having Dan Clara in your face reading a text to you, a script to you. It was very fun. So I'm not sure I'm ready yet, but I'm making progress.
I'm sorry I called you by your first name. It didn't appear to trip you up, though. Anyone else? Okay. All right. It is now time for the offertory and time to remember that this community exists because we care for it together. Your gifts help sustain the work and the shared spirit that brings us together and give meaning to what we do. So let us give now as we are able in the spirit of generosity and gratitude. And if you're visiting for the first time, let your presence be your gift to us. The world is often filled with noise, and silence can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. It is in the quiet that we often hear the most important things. As we continue in this sacred hour, let us pause for a moment of silence and enter the stillness together to prepare for today's speaker.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for having me back and believing that what I have to say is valuable. A third time. I know that Unitarians are different, so I have a very important question before I get started. We're going to have a lot of conversation today, even though I might be talking the most. But important question. Am I allowed to swear? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. You know, you got to make sure. No worry, I won't be ballistic or anything. Just an important question to ask before you say something. And I also want to give you permission to be brutally honest when I ask you a question. We're going to do a little turn and talk right away, okay? Question for you. What is the worst thing someone has ever said to you? And how did it make you feel? And if you feel like it, or so inclined, share it with a neighbor.
I can share it with all of you.
Oh.
I was going to Hope Church, and I was the chair of the trustees, and then I became a sexton. And the minister said I was spending too much time at church.
Go ahead, yeah.
This may be trivial, but as an 11-year-old girl, a swim team member's mother told me I was so homely, I was cute.
Thank you for sharing, both of you. Thank you. That's vulnerable, and it's also it's a lot. Go ahead, Joy. Yeah.
To be told by my mom that I wasn't wanted.
Yeah. Words are powerful. Go ahead, Bets.
To be sitting in the teacher's lounge and other people are talking about gays and lesbians and how awful. And not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've had two occasions where people have asked the same question of me, and one was with a dear friend who I haven't seen since several years ago, and another was from I went into my former church and I happened to run into a trustees meeting that I was always used to be on, and I went into the meeting, but both people asked me the same thing. The chair of that committee asked, and my friend asked, what church are you going to up there in Door County? And I said, I'm a Unitarian. And both of them laughed and said, well, they don't believe anything. It's to make the journey that we've all made to get where we're sitting here today is an important journey that we've had to, for us, it works.
Thank you. Wow, I'm amazed at how many people sharing. Yeah, go ahead.
As an adult, about 45 or 50 years old, I was well educated. I'm an MSW clinical social worker and CEO of a fairly organized social service agency in Davenport, Iowa. And my dad asked me, when am I going to go out and get a real job?
I'm sorry. I relate to that one too much. Yeah.
It's whenever friends and especially my family members say, well, we love the sinner but hate the sin in
Mhm.
relation to sexual orientation.
Yeah.
Hate that.
Me too. Me too. I'm gonna move us on. I am so appreciative of everyone who had the courage to share. Thank you, because words are very powerful, and they do a lot of things. And a little bit of what I'm going to talk to you about today is the power of words. I don't remember what I was wearing. I don't remember the date. I don't remember who was all there, but I remember what was exactly said to me. One sentence: "You're a worthless piece of shit." I remember one word: worthless. And that was enough to change everything. Because words are funny like that. They stick to the ribs. They fill up a room or they leave it empty. And I've been here a few times to speak already, so you all know that I'm a woman of a lot of words. As an actor and a singer and a speaker, I get to sing and speak many words. And as a writer who just launched pre-sales for my new book, I get to write a lot of words. My book is titled Shredding Rugs. And Shredding Rugs isn't just the title, but it's a practice. It's a movement. And it's me giving breath to what I used to sweep under the rug, to all the stuff that I let mold inside of me, but not anymore. So today, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about words and how they shape us and what it costs us when we go quiet. I've lived in many places, and I don't remember the decorations of every house that I lived growing up in, but I remember what was said, and I remember what wasn't said, and I remember how what was or wasn't said made me feel more than anything. Words have the power to hold, and they have the power to break. For most of us, we don't get a chance to choose the words that are first spoken over us. Someone told us who we were, what we couldn't be, what love looked like, what staying quiet would earn us, and whether we knew it or not, we believed them. But we had very little control on whether those words would hold or break us. Words that break, those are the sharp ones. A lot of you just shared words that break, right? Those are the ones that wound or that sever. They sometimes are said to you, and sometimes they're said by you. They fracture your sense of self. They build silence around you like a fence. When I was told that I was a worthless piece of shit, I promise not to say that word anymore now, I began to function as so. I believed it, and so I became mute about many things that were happening to me because I believed that nobody cared. Why? Because somebody told me I was worthless. You cling on to that, right? I write a lot of words in my book, or I wrote a lot of words in my book about words that break. Because if you don't name that kind of harm, you will spend your whole life believing you deserved it. Words have that kind of power. Language has a lineage. The wrong word in the wrong mouth becomes a weapon. And when we repeat those words to ourselves, that's when the breaking gets passed on. And there's a sacrifice in repeating those words and passing it on to yourself. When you do that, those words steal your voice, your clarity, and your belief in your own enoughness. Here's another question for you. What's the greatest thing someone has ever said to you?
I love you.
I love that.
When I grow up, I want to be just like you.
That might have been me. I stand on that firmly. Anyone else? Yeah.
2 years ago, someone told my therapist, when I started a behavioral health journey, told me, I am enough.
Yes, you are. Thank you. Someone recently shared with me, I had a birthday. You know, on birthdays, everybody share everything they love about you with you. And so I just chose one for my 33rd birthday. But someone recently said to me, you remind me of how precious life is and how important it is to connect with people on a deep level and love fearlessly. And I was like, wow, I remind you of that? I fully receive that. These kind of words are what we call holding words. They're the words that nourish us, that ground us, that pay witness to who we are, right? And sometimes they come from other people, and sometimes they come from you after years of silence. Some words hold us up. They say, you're not crazy, you're not too much, you're not alone. And there are lines in my book that I didn't write to be poetic. I wrote them to survive, to keep the version of me who wanted to disappear from vanishing. Those were my holding words that showed up before healing did. You know, a fun fact for you. In my poetry collection, there are many pieces from when I was a young girl. Like, the poetry collection holds about 2 decades, which is wild because I'm only 33. But 2 decades of words that I've stored. So when I was younger, I used to have these notebooks. And even though I moved around a lot, house to house, stayed in a lot of different places, but the one thing I carried with me from every place were these notebooks. And I would write in these notebooks, and I would either write poetry or I would write letters. And one of the things that I wrote was prayers. And if you're familiar with The Color Purple, the book, every chapter in the beginning starts with "Dear God, dear God." I didn't realize it until probably yesterday that that's how I was talking to Rhodey, and I was like, I have all these notebooks, and I would start each prayer with "Dear God, dear God." And I recently, as I worked on my book the last year, I went back to those notebooks because I was curious. I just went back to stuff that I've had for a long time, and a lot of the pieces that I have in this collection of poetry are also pieces that I started many years ago. And so I went back and I counted how many "Dear Gods" I wrote. And there were 280 of them. And 280 prayers that I had written. And so, one of the pieces in this collection is called 280 Prayers. Want to hear it?
Yeah.
For real? Okay, I'm going to share this with you, but I got to tell you, you're going to be the first ones to hear a piece of poetry from this book that nobody else has heard. Wow. Yeah, you're special like that, okay? So don't tell me I've never given you anything. No, I'm kidding. But 280 prayers. Tear-stained pages. Ink smothered and smeared. I must have gone hoarse crying those Jesus prayers. Voice splintered, soul frayed. 280 prayers scrawled across the heavens like desperate graffiti on endless walls. Our Father who art in heaven, etched into my marrow, a hymn turned hollow, overdosing, ripping through my veins like poison. There was no escape. 280 prayers, 280 pleas to God, rescue me, have mercy on me. Late nights blurred into early mornings, dual afternoons melted into despair, hands pressed together tight as if holding the seams of my life intact, as if clasped palms could rewrite destiny. Knees bruised, bloodied, bent low, trembling, searching the ground for a sign while the heavens mocked me with silence. 280 prayers, shouted, whispered, groaned, every word hurled into the void, every plea bouncing back like an unanswered echo. 280 prayers, and still the sky stayed deaf. Still, the God I begged turned away, like a father refusing to open the door. How much can a girl endure? How long does faith wait before it breaks? I wonder if God is blind, or if he simply chose to look somewhere else. To hands less worn, to knees less raw, to voices untainted by desperation. 280 prayers carried like stones, each one heavier than the last. Still, I prayed. Still, I stayed, because what else could I do? What's faith if not the stubborn hope that one day, one prayer will finally rise high enough to break through? I had holding words for a long time before my healing process began. Those holding words helped me to name things. And naming things is a form of love. It's a form of reclaiming. And when we give language to pain, we take the first step in transforming it. Even still, there's a sacrifice with holding words. They ask us to return to the moments we tried to forget. They demand honesty. They strip away the pretty. But in return, they anchor us. Holding words say, you've been through it. You're still here. Let's call it what it is. A lot of people like to talk about the power of words. Hence, it's me. I'm up here talking about the power of words, okay? Because I believe words are indeed powerful. But I think we often fail to talk about the power of what goes unsaid. Because sometimes what shapes us, it ain't about what was said. It's about what never got spoken at all. Silence is a language too. In my life, in my family, silence was a currency. It was a tradition, a form of protection. It was a warning, a way to cope, a way to survive, to not make it worse. And sometimes silence kept the peace, but it also buried the truth. It was the look you got when you asked too much. It was the change in the tone when somebody walked in the room. We didn't say certain things, not because they weren't true, but because the truth made things messier. So we learned how to keep quiet, how to be careful, how to swallow stories like they were secrets, even though those stories belonged to us. And when you live like that long enough, the silence becomes an inheritance. You learn what not to ask, what not to name, what not to feel out loud. We learn what not to speak, what not to question. And over time, that becomes a rhythm. And we forget that we ever had the right to say anything at all. A lot of my poems aren't just about what was said, they're about what wasn't. The silence when nobody shows up. The silence when you needed someone to explain, to apologize, to name what happened and they didn't. And I had to teach myself to speak into those gaps. Silence will always cost us something. Even if it starts out as comfort, as protection, it eventually becomes a cage. And words, real, honest, unflinching words, they might shake the floor, but they will also swing the door open so that you are no longer caged. And that is the work of my book. That's what my poems are about. They're not just naming trauma, but refusing to carry the silence that came with it, refusing to stay caged. Shredding rugs is me breaking the rhythm. These poems are me turning silence on its head. They're the words my younger self never had, the questions no one answered, the truths that were understood but never spoken out loud. And I had a rug full of dust, okay? And I was tired of pretending that it wasn't. And in my book, I don't just talk about what happened. I ask why nobody talked about it at all. Today, there are more and more people who are confronting generational harm in their families. They're speaking up about abuse, neglect, abandonment, because for years we were told what happens in this house stays in the house. Okay, I was going to say, I knew somebody knew the phrase. What happens in this house stays in this house. And silence kept cycles going. But now, people are writing books. It's me. People are writing books. They're starting healing circles. They're showing up to therapy. They're saying it ends with me. And those stories, those words, they are breaking curses. And I am proud to be amongst the generation of cycle breakers. Silence is a shield, right? But it's also a wound. And it's what keeps us stuck. And words can hurt, but they can also set the record straight when you speak them. They can free you. And my book is about choosing freedom, not because I wasn't afraid, because if you let me tell it, I really am still terrified that this book is going into the world. But it's because I don't want to carry the silence anymore. And the beautiful thing is when we speak, when we tell the truth, we make room for someone else to do the same. And that's how we begin healing, not alone, but in an echo. What silence did you inherit? And what would happen if you decided to break it? There's a power in truth-telling. For many years, so all the years that I've been writing, I told you about my 2 decades of poems and letters and prayers. A lot of my pieces in that book, I wrote in high school and middle school. And when I started writing, I didn't write for revenge. I didn't write to be heard, but just to breathe again. You know, writing this book wasn't about being healed. It was about being honest. It was me saying I lived through that and I'm still here and I'm still forming language around it and I'm still deciding what I believe about myself. And there's power in that. And I'm curious, if you wrote a letter to the version of you that stays silent the longest, what would it say? Would it say, I forgive you? Would it say, I see you now? Would it say, we don't have to hide anymore? My book is full of dust and breath and truth. But that question is for you. That's yours. And you don't have to be a poet to speak something powerful. You just have to choose your truth over your silence. I'm going to share one more poem, okay? It's the poem that entitled the title of this book, and it's called Break, Unleash, and Shred, and its title has changed many times. So just know it's called Shredding Rugs, but this piece is what inspired the title of this book. Snap the broom in two. Feel the curse crack with it. Feel the weight shift. The hush of 100 years rip beneath my feet. Unleash the dust. Ain't no more sweeping shit under the rug. I said it again. Ain't no more pressing dirt into dark hymns. Ain't no more quiet. Let it rise in the lights. Let it choke if it must. It's been holding its breath too long. Shred the rug. Every secret, every shame, every name they told you not to speak, call them out. Let them loose. Watch them span like demons searching for a home that ain't yours no more. Tear it from the floor. Rip every thread, every lie woven in tight, every silence stitched in deep. Make sure ain't nobody gonna lay it down again. Make sure the ones that come next ain't got nowhere left to hide the truth. This ain't a cleansing. This is a reckoning. Ain't no more let it be. Ain't no more hush. Ain't no more curse passed down like some family heirloom. We break, we unleash, we shred. And when the dust settles, we breathe clean. We all got rugs. Some of ours have been passed down, worn thin from all the things that we swept under it. Grief that we didn't get to name, questions that nobody ever answered, shame that wasn't ours to carry, but we carried it anyways. And we learned how to straighten the corners, make it look all tidy and nice, make it look like healing when we was really just hiding. But the truth doesn't go away just because you don't say it. It waits. It lingers. It whispers from underneath that rug at 2 a.m. It follows you from house to house, from childhood to adulthood, from silence to your first almost. And that's why truth is powerful. Not because it's easy, but because it will keep knocking until you answer. My book is full of words that break, words that hold, the language of silence, but more than anything, it's full of truth. Truths that I was once afraid to say out loud. And here's the thing. As scary as it is, truth didn't destroy me. I'm still here. I'm talking about it out loud to you. Truth brought me back to myself, piece by piece, poem by poem, line by line. Truth said, you're allowed to feel this, you're allowed to say this, and you are allowed to begin again. So what's underneath your rug? What's the thing you've been holding on to because you were too afraid that it might fall apart if you let it breathe? What have you been taught to hide, to bury, to fold small and never speak of again? Because I believe that what you hide might hurt you, but what you speak, what you tell, what you name, that's what can save you. That's how the next generation gets a new story, and that's how healing begins. Not with fixing, but with telling the truth. Your truth doesn't have to be pretty. It don't need to rhyme or resolve. It just needs to be real and yours and spoken. And if I can leave you with one invitation today, it would be this. Write the thing that you've been afraid to say out loud. Speak it to yourself, even if your voice shakes. Tell the truth and let it make room for you to breathe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please join in singing hymn 145, A Tranquil Streams, as tranquil streams.
Free.
As we come to the close of our time together this morning, I invite you to carry with you the spirit of the hour and the words, the powerful words of this hour. We explored the language, that language rooted in truth and spoken with courage can be a powerful force for connection and transformation. Sometimes our words rise up like song, other times they come softly like a whisper, but always they matter. Let us hold space for one final offering of language, a poetic reminder that meaning is not just in powerful speeches or perfect phrases, but in the quiet presence of the natural world that speaks in its own tender way. I invite you to listen to For the Flowers Have the Gift of Language by Richard Gilbert. The daffodil with yellow trumpet tells of gladness. The tall iris of blue and white and purple speaks of peace. The red tulip whispers gently of love, while the Easter lily with head uplifted speaks confidently of life triumphant. And every blossom shouts of joy, while buds sing softly of the promise to unfold. Let us learn the language of the flowers, to be open, honest, hopeful, joyful. For if we could see the miracle of a single flower clearly, our whole life would change. Thank you for being here, and we'll regroup back here promptly at about 10 after 11.